English teaching assistant on the Fulbright program in Tajikistan.
And I'm Kyle, and I am also an Fulbright English teaching assistant in Tajikistan.
So today we're going to talk to you about what we've done in the last few months using debate as a form of English teaching, discussion, and community building in our posts. So we want to walk you through a little bit of the history of what we've been doing and how it could potentially apply to the country where you're teaching or visiting.
Great. So we're just going to start with one definition of debate that has helped us a lot. So this is from the International Debate Education Association. And for them, debate is an essential tool for developing and maintaining democracy in open societies. More than a mere verbal or performance skill, debate embodies the ideals of reasoned argument, tolerance for diverging points of view, and rigorous self-examination. Now that definition is a little bit difficult for some of your second language learners, or third or fourth or fifth, for whom English is a new language. So how did we come to this debating? I personally had never done debate in high school or in college. It never would have occurred to me, because to me I thought you had to be totally fluent in English to have amazing command to be able to do this. But we soon realized that all of our students want practice speaking in English. And both of us began discussion clubs, talking to students, and we realized that it's really helpful to have a format and specific ways to be able to speak. So we ended up coming to debate first to practice English speaking skills, because that's something, at least in Tajikistan, that students often don't get in their schools. But then as we were learning more about it and began developing, we sort of fell in love with it because we realized how much else debate also does. Not only English speaking skills, also public speaking skills and presentation in general. And much more important, those critical thinking skills that the International Education Association defined in the previous slide. This is also something that our students mostly don't get in their school system here. And training in debate gives them an amazing opportunity to practice the kind of critical thinking that we often take for granted. More importantly, as I said, it's actually really accessible to anyone. We've done it in many different forms. I've done it with people who speak very little English in a less formal way. And then over the course of the past 7 months, we've also trained people in a much more intensive formal format.
Yeah, so the point of this is to show you how it's accessible to you. And there's a lot of resources that exist already in the international community to make debate team possible in your community or in your school or in your extracurricular center. So what we're doing now is using the facilities we have to host trainings, discussion clubs, and a lot of practice debates. And we also administrate or organize tournaments that students can work up to compete with each other. So we go to different areas in the country and make sure that their groups are formulated, and then we bring them together to debate one another. So as English teaching assistants, we partnered with the debate community in Dushanbe. There's a few of them here. And then we created an English debate league using social media to connect people, and also the coordinators of our schools. And right now we're posted at the American Corners. So what we would like to show you now is you don't need to have an existing community, but you do need to have a plan to create these smaller debate clubs that can come together and then form bigger tournaments. And part of that is just knowing how to train a debater. It's very easy to go from a discussion club, notice the issues that are important to the people in your community, whether it's in Arab world, or whether you're in Latin America, or whether you're in Central Asia. Find out what's important to your students, and then start off using debate games and conversation games to start them thinking critically about what they can do to discuss these issues in a safe environment. So, as a teacher, what you should know on how to train a debater is that the same conversations you're having need to then be structured in order for students with differing opinions to debate each other without it becoming a confrontation or an argument without a purpose. So what we would advise you to do is set the rules first. Let them know that they're joining a debate team. You have your conversation clubs and then you have your debate team. And make it quite serious, like we're doing this so that we can compete in tournaments and win. You'll be judged on your ideas, not your English language skills, and set the format of your debate early. There are many different formats, but since we were working with mostly school children and university kids, we decided to pick the Karl Popper format. And all of these formats are available to you in resources online, which we'll get to. But basically, you have 3 people per team. The first speakers are your argument constructors, and they have to give the entire argument. Then you have a cross-examination, which practices skills like conversation and questioning and critical thinking and critical listening. So the cross-examination is 3 minutes. After that, you have 2 rebuttal speakers. Those are people who are very keen on the arguments of the first speaker, but they're going to rebut the arguments of the opposition. Then there's another session of questions for 3 minutes, and then there's a 5-minute analysis. The way to start it is to practice small components of skill debate in isolation. So there's 3 different parts to this team. Take each skill one at a time and then practice them using easier games. And we'll tell you some of those games now.
So, as Ariba mentioned, we basically started by practicing these small components in very easy formats. And because, at least for me, I had little experience, this was my main source of information and games. It's idebate.org. If you go on the training link, they have tons of games that can help you. I use these to train my debating team. I also use these games to make my other classes more interesting and more fun and more interactive. So the first game that we're just going to talk you through really quickly that you can use with many different groups at many different levels. Basically, it's a partner work, so you can do it with a big group of people. The idea is you tell everyone to find your partner. And you're going to tell them they're going to do a short debate. Each person is going to get 1 minute. The first person will speak for 1 minute. We're going to tell them to stop. Then the second person will speak for 1 minute. And you're going to tell them to stop. And you repeat this several times so that the students get used to it and they understand what you mean. And every time you tell them to think about something a little bit different. So for example, the first time I played this game and I introduced it to a large group of students, I said, everyone find your partner. Okay, figure out who's older of the 2 of you. Okay, the person who is older will speak first. They will speak on the merits of trees. They will defend the fact that trees are great, are better. The second person is going to be debating the fact that stones are actually better than trees. Trees versus stones. You're right, it sounds silly, but that's what makes it great, because it makes people laugh, it makes them start talking. We do trees and stones, summer versus winter, and you tell them to listen to the other person who's talking, and you give them very strict rules. You time with your watch, start, wait 1 minute, stop, next person, and you do it again. As a teacher, I circulate and monitor while they're talking, and then in between rounds, I will ask students to say what their partner has been thinking.
So after you've established the idea of listening to each other and giving time to the other speaker, you can move on to other games that go from basic speaking to actual construction of arguments, or thinking about how arguments can affect a listener. And one of the games you can do is called Thought Tunnel. It's a really fun game because you can use a sillier, thought-provoking idea like, we believe that all students should spend less time on Facebook. That gets them thinking about their life and personal experiences. Or you can do something more serious, thinking of the same theme, but we believe that the internet causes more harm to society than good. So one side would be arguing, yeah, it causes more harm. The other side says, no, it's not harming society. So how you structure the game. You get a group of around 11 or 13 people. It should be an odd number. You get 2 lines to line up. So if we had 11, you would do 5 people here on the right and 5 people on the left facing each other, forming a tunnel or a pathway, an alley. Then one person is a judge, and that person is walking down or through the top thought tunnel. They have to interact with people on their left and then on their right, and both sides are arguing for their side to persuade you. So it's literally hearing 2 sides almost simultaneously. And they have to go through, going one by one, and allow them about 3 to 5 minutes to do this. Once they get to the other side of the thought tunnel, they have to explain which argument was the strongest and why. There's so many questions that pop up as you're living life in your posts in your countries, and you can think about the pros and cons of that question before, and then apply it into your debate training as a way for kids to start talking about things that they're passionate about. And then later, when you're doing brainstorming for resolutions, which we'll talk about more about what resolutions are, they can think back to Thought Tunnel and see, okay, what arguments were the best, the strongest? How do I think of the other side's arguments before I write down my arguments for my presentation or my debate? And you can refer back to the games that you played once you start preparing for tournaments and real debates with competitive teams.
So the games are fun, the games really help, and they help us deal with some of the challenges. Not everything is easy. Of course, as in every English class, you have one of our biggest early challenges was different levels of English. I find that I can do a lot of these games with many different levels of English, and that can work, but actually training for a formal debate and asking someone to speak for 6 minutes, I can't include everyone. We also took a really long time to get past some to practice critical thinking and to practice thinking in this way. We dealt with a lot of circular arguments when we were first talking, and having a lot of patience as a teacher for helping students get to see what kind of arguments are stronger took months. I think also in a situation in which students are used to either one teacher lectures and they listen, they aren't used to a situation and really listening to their peers. It takes sort of pretty strict rule keeping to make sure everyone is paying attention and actually respecting and listening to each other. I think I say the word respect at least 5 times every time we meet. We also, along with that critical thinking, part of the beautiful challenge of debate is getting people to think about both sides of an issue or argue for something that they really don't agree with. When I was first starting, I told my students they weren't allowed to use the words right and wrong because they would get really hung up on the fact that this side was right, or they would begin to speak and say, I don't really believe this, but I'm forced to argue for this position. So getting students to change sides or realize that the whole point of debate is an exercise to make yourself think about both sides of an issue. Also, in your own class, when you can control one room, that has its own challenges. When it gets to trying to get bigger and organize a tournament, of course, that multiplies into many, many more challenges. So if you want to do something like planning a tournament, you really do need to start months ahead of time to deal with those organizational infrastructure, whatever unique situation you have in your country.
So, good luck. We know it was a lot of information, but we want to offer you our help and assistance and feedback. If you ever need to contact us, you can feel free to do so. My name is Ariba Ajani. My email address is aribaajani@gmail.com.
And my name is Kyle Eichner, and my email address is also kyle.eichner@gmail.com. We'd be happy to talk to you about using debate in all sorts of different situations, and we wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, let us know if you actually end up using debate, and we would love to hear your stories as well.
Khoja bigu khimana mana 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 mana